Greetings, true believers. While look at phase 2 of the MCU now continues on with the penultimate film in the series, and the second film in the Avengers franchise, Avengers Age of Ultron. In the Eastern European country of Sokovia, the Avengers, Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Thor, Bruce Banner, Natasha Romanoff, and Clint Barton raid a Hydra facility commanded by Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, who has experimented on humans using the scepter previously wielded by Loki. They meet two of Strucker's test subjects, twins Pedro, who has superhuman speed, and Wanda Maximoff, who has telepathic and telekinetic abilities, and apprehend Strucker, while Stark retrieves Loki's scepter. Stark had managed to discover an artificial intelligence within the scepter's gem, and secretly decided to use it to complete Stark's Ultron global defense program. The unexpectedly sentient Ultron, believing he must eradicate humanity to save Earth, eliminates Stark's AI Jarvis and attacks the Avengers at their headquarters. Escaping with the scepter, Ultron uses the resources in Strucker's Sokovia base to upgrade his rudimentary body and build an army of robot drones. Having killed Strucker, he recruits the Maximoffs, who hold Stark responsible for their parents' deaths by his company's weapons, and goes to the base of arms dealer Ulysses Claw in Johannesburg to get vibranium. The Avengers attack Ultron and the Maximoffs, but Wanda subdues them with haunting visions, causing Banner to turn into the Hulk and rampage until Stark stops him with his anti-Hulk armor. A worldwide backlash over the resulting destruction and the fears Wanda's hallucinations incited send the team into hiding at Barton's farmhouse. Thor departs to consult with Dr. Eric Selvig on the apocalyptic future he saw in his hallucination, when Nick Fury arrives and encourages the team to form a plan to stop Ultron. In Seoul, Ultron uses Loki's scepter to enslave the team's friend Helen Cho. They use her synthetic tissue technology, vibranium, and the scepter's gem to graft a new body. As Ultron uploads himself into the body, Wanda is able to read his mind, discovering his plan for human extinction. The Maximoffs turn against Ultron. Rogers and Romanoff and Barton fight Ultron and retrieve the synthetic body, but Ultron captures Romanoff. The Avengers fight among themselves when Stark and Banner secretly upload Jarvis, who was still working after hiding from Ultron inside the internet, into the synthetic body. Thor returns to help activate the body, based on his vision that the gem on its brow is the Mind Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones, the most powerful objects in existence. This vision earns our trust by being worthy of lifting Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. Vision and the Maximoffs go with the Avengers to Sokovia. Ultron has used their remaining vibranium to build a machine to lift a large part of the capital city skyward, intending to crash it into the ground to cause global extinction. Banner rescues Romanoff, who awakens the Hulk for the battle. The Avengers fight Ultron's army while Fury arrives in a helicarrier with Maria Hill, James Rhodes, and S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to evacuate civilians. Pedro dies when he shields Barton from gunfire, and eventual Wanda abandons her post to destroy Ultron's primary body, which allows one of his drones to activate the machine. The city plummets, but Stark and Thor overload the machine and shatter the landmass. In the aftermath, the Hulk, unwilling to endanger Romanoff by being with her, departs in a Quinjet, while Vision confronts it, seemingly destroys Ultron's last remaining body. Later, with the Avengers having established a new base run by Fury, Hill, Cho, and Selvig, Thor returns to Asgard to learn more about the forces he suspects have manipulated major events. As Stark leaves and Barton retires, Rogers and Romanoff prepare to train new Avengers: Rhodes, Vision, Sam Wilson, and Wanda. In a mid-credits scene, Thanos, dissatisfied by the failures of his pawns, dons a gauntlet and vows to retrieve the Infinity Stones himself. Bum bum bum. So anyway, let's look at the production of this film, beginning with the development. In October 2011, Kevin Feige, president of Marvel Studios, said the studio was beginning to look at their Phase 2 films, which would start with Iron Man 3 and culminate in a second Avengers film. In March 2012, Joss Whedon, director of the first film, stated that he would want a sequel to be more small, personal, and painful, that is not just a rehash of what seemed to work the first time, and a theme having full originality to itself. Despite the production of the film becoming increasingly wider in scope, Feige maintained that this was not their intention, always looking to see where the team wanted to take the characters, or how to make it bigger than the Avengers. At the premiere of the Avengers, Feige said the studio had an option for Whedon to return as director. In May 2012, after the successful release of the first film, Disney CEO Bob Iger announced a sequel was in development. Most of the film's cast members were under contract to potentially appear in the sequel. However, Robert Downey Jr. was not, as his four-picture deal with Marvel expired after Iron Man 3. At the 2012 San Diego Comic-Con International, Whedon said he was undecided about directing. However, in August 2012, Iger announced that Whedon would return to write and direct the sequel and develop the Marvel television series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for ABC. Later in the month, Disney set a May 1, 2015 release date. Whedon said his return for a sequel wasn't a tough decision. He thought it was not going to happen, but realized he desperately wanted to say more about these characters when he started considering it. Whedon said that they intended for the film's production to not be as rushed as the first one. In December 2012, Whedon stated that he had completed an outline for the film. In March 2013, Whedon said they looked to The Empire Strikes Back and The Godfather Part 2 as inspirations. Feige revealed that Captain Marvel, who starred in her own MCU film in 2019, appeared in an early draft of the screenplay, but was removed since the character had not yet been cast, saying, quote, "It didn't feel like the time. We didn't want to introduce her fully formed flying in a costume before you knew who she was or how she came to be." Whedon went so far as to shoot visual effects space for Captain Marvel to fly into Avengers headquarters at the end of the film. The shots were reused, however, for Scarlet Witch instead. Feige also revealed that an early draft of the script had Hulk's Quinjet detected near Saturn at the end of the film, but it was finally decided to keep it Earth-based and leave his fate ambiguous in order to spell rumors that a film based on the Planet Hulk comic storyline was in development, which Marvel Studios had no plans to adapt at the time. Marvel would later decide to adapt Planet Hulk for the film Thor Ragnarok, in which the Hulk does end up leaving Earth. And now on to pre-production. By April 2013, filming was scheduled to begin in early 2014 at Shepperton Studios in England. At the Hollywood premiere of Iron Man 3, Whedon said they had completed a draft of the script, started the storyboard process, and met with actors. Whedon also mentioned that he wrote with Downey in mind and included a brother-sister act from the comic books, later confirming that he was referring to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Whedon explained his rationale for including the characters in the film that their powers are very visually interesting, with problems which Whedon had on the first one for strong powers. Those powers are super speed and spells and telekinesis, respectively, which they can do all that. They can do that, which they can do that will help sort of keep it fresh, though cautioned he was not throwing in characters for the sake of doing that. We didn't say that the twins allowed him to add more conflict, which do not like the United States and the Avengers. The Avengers like a world power, and not everybody's on board with the Avengers coming in and starting fights, even in the name of justice. Because Marvel Studios shared the film rights to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch with 20th Century Fox, and had to avoid conflicts with Fox's X-Men films, Whedon incorporated two important characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe completely on his terms for the first time, which allowed him to connect their origins to the universe that they created and avoid the concept of mutants. Whedon relished at the storytelling opportunities by introducing a character with telepathic powers, explaining, quote, "It meant we could spend a little time inside the Avengers' heads, either their past or their impressions of what's going on, or their fears, or all the above." By May, Downey had entered negotiations to extend his contract with Marvel Studios and reprise as well as Iron Man in the film. A month later, Downey signed on to return for the then untitled Avengers sequel, as well as the third Avengers film. At the 2013 San Diego Comic-Con International, Whedon announced the film would be subtitled Age of Ultron. Despite the subtitle, the film is not based on the 2013 comic book miniseries Age of Ultron. Feige explained that they simply liked the title Age of Ultron, but the plot was taken from decades of Avengers story arcs. Whedon announced that Ultron's origin would differ from his role in the comics, and that Hank Pym would not be involved with Ultron's creation. Whedon disclosed that Edgar Wright had rights to the character first through his inclusion in Ant-Man, which was already in development. He also thought that Ultron needed to be conceived through the Avengers, and since they already had Tony Stark and Bruce Banner on the team, it would not make sense to bring in a third scientist. Whedon also said the film would have a darker tone due to Ultron's involvement. The title of the film came as a surprise to many fans who were expecting Thanos, the mastermind behind the events of the first film, to be the main villain in the sequel. Whedon saying, quote, "Thanos is never meant to be the next villain. He's always been the overlord of villainy and darkness." Commenting on finding the right balance between technology and fantasy-based heroes in Avengers Age of Ultron, Feige explained that Iron Man is a technology-based hero, and his films are always based on those. Thor is a fantasy-based hero in the 2011 film the same name, which also introduces Asgard, a fantastical realm in the more reality-based MCU. And finally, Ultron clearly comes out of technology, using tools that established in the franchise to construct Age of Ultron's storyline. Casting continued into August 2013, with the announcement that James Spader would play Ultron. In November, Marvel confirmed that Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson would play the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, respectively. Taylor Johnson had been in negotiations since as early as June. Olsen's potential involvement was first reported in August. By the end of the year, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Evans, Samuel L. Jackson, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, and Jeremy Renner and Kobe Smulders were confirmed to be returning to their roles from the first film, and Don Cheadle, who played James Rhodes in the Iron Man films, had committed to a part in the film. In the early months of 2014, Thomas Kretschmann was cast as Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, Claudia Kim was cast in an unspecified role, and Paul Bettany, who voiced Jarvis in the previous MCU films, was cast as the Vision. Whedon said juggling all the characters in the film was a nightmare. He explained, quote, "They're very disparate characters. The joy of the Avengers is they really don't belong in the same room. It's not like the X-Men, who were all tortured by the same thing and have similar costumes. These guys are just all over the place. And so it's tough. Honestly, this is as tough as anything I've ever done." And on January 24th, 2014, the Forte di Bard Association announced that filming would take place at Fort Bard in the Aosta Valley region of Italy in March 2014, as well as other locations in the Aosta Valley, including Aosta, Bard, Donnas, Point St. Martin, and Varese. The next month, the Gauteng Film Commission announced that action sequences would be filmed in Johannesburg, South Africa, and other locations in Gauteng beginning in mid-February. A few weeks later, Marvel announced that portions of the film would be shot in South Korea. Feige cited the nation's cutting-edge technology, beautiful landscapes, and spectacular architecture as ideal for the film. The nation's capital, Seoul, and Seoul's surrounding province, Gyeonggi, were selected as filming locations. South Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism reimbursing up to 30% of the studio's expenditures as part of a state-funded incentive program. And now on to the filming. Filming began on Tuesday, February 11th, 2014 in Johannesburg, South Africa, having been postponed that Monday. Second unit crews shot action sequences without the main cast to be used as background plates for scenes featuring the Hulk in the central business district of Johannesburg for a period of 2 weeks. By mid-March, principal photography had begun at Shepperton Studios near London and was scheduled to film there for at least 4 months, under the working title After Party. Filming at Shepperton as well as other locations in England allowed Whedon to get a number of different looks and textures and moods to give the film a different palette and fresh aesthetics from its predecessor. Production designer Charles Wood built an enormous new Avengers Tower set, one of the largest sets ever built for a Marvel film. The set featured multiple connected environments and levels. On March 22nd, production moved to Fort Bard, Italy, and continued in the Aosta Valley region through March 28th. The region doubled as the fictional Eastern European nation of Sokovia, with crews replacing local storefronts with acrylic script. Filming in South Korea began on March 30th on the Maypao Bridge and continued through April 14th at various locations in Seoul. While in Seoul, the production was able to attach cameras to drones and race cars to get unique camera angles and footage. An artificial island on the Han River known as the Soviet Dungadom Som, sorry if I butchered that, serves the headquarters of an IT institute featured in the film. Scenes involving Ultron's attacks on parts of the city were shot at the Gangnam River, shot in the Gangnam district. In April, shooting began in Holly Woods in Hampshire, England, and Haley Atwell, who played Peggy Carter in previous MCU films. Film scenes are set at the Rivoli Ballroom in London, while extras performed the Lindy Hop. That June, scenes were shot at the University of East Anglia in Norwich and at Dover Castle in Kent, with Dover Castle used for interior shots of Strucker's Hydra base in Sokovia. The next month, filming took place at a training facility for London's Metropolitan Police Service, which doubled as a city in Sokovia. Additional filming took place in Chittagong, Bangladesh, including the Chittagong ship breaking yard, and in New York State. On August 6, Whedon announced on Twitter that he had completed principal photography on Avengers Age of Ultron. Disney spent $330.6 million on Avengers Age of Ultron from February 2013 to November 2014, but $50.7 million of this was offset by payments from the UK tax authority. A report on actual production costs for films from Film LA Inc. included a gross budget of $444 million, with a net of $365 million for Avengers Age of Ultron. This makes the film the second most expensive film ever made. Cinematographer Ben Davis, who also worked with Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy, shot the film with a main unit of 3 Arri Alexa cameras. Davis said, quote, "Although the Alexa was Marvel's preferred camera, we were locked into that choice from the start. What wasn't negotiable was the fact that we were shooting digital. That's how Marvel shoots all of its films." Davis also used Blackmagic Design's pocket cinema cameras to meet the needs of the second unit kit, explaining, quote, "The second unit typically needs a fleet of smaller cameras that are less expensive and are work enough to handle the various trials by fire, as it were, that we throw at them." About the camera system, Whedon stated that this film was shot very differently from the first one, using many long lenses, and that he aimed to shoot the film almost like a documentary. To create the scenes depicting how Quicksilver views the world, scenes were shot with an ultra-high-speed camera and later combined with shots of Taylor Johnson moving through the same scene at normal speed. And now on to post-production. In June 2014, the IMAX Corporation announced that the IMAX release of the film would be converted to IMAX 3D. Following the completion of principal photography, several more cast members were revealed, including Stellan Skarsgård, Anthony Mackie, Idris Elba, and Tom Hiddleston, reprising their roles from previous MCU films. However, Hiddleston's scenes did not make the theatrical cut of the film, with Whedon saying what was shot didn't play, and he did not want the film to feel overstuffed. According to Hiddleston, quote, "In test screenings, audiences had overemphasized Loki's role, so they thought that because I was in it, I was controlling Ultron, and was actually imbalancing people's expectations." Later explained that Elba and Atwell appear in the film because of exploring the psyches of the Avengers from Scarlet Witch's power. In December 2014, Kim's role was revealed as Dr. Helen Cho. Additional scenes were scheduled to be filmed in January 2015 at Pinewood Studios. In February 2015, Marvel confirmed through promotional material that Andy Serkis would play Ulysses Klaue in the film. In early April 2015, Linda Cardellini and Julie Delpy were confirmed to be part of the film's cast. At the same time, Whedon stated that the film would not contain a post-credits scene, which had become customary for MCU films. Whedon tried to come up with a post-credits scene, but felt that he could not top the shawarma scene in The Avengers, explaining, quote, "It didn't seem to lend itself in the same way, and we wanted to be true to what felt right. The first rule of making a sequel is take the best moments and do something else. Don't do the Indiana Jones gun trick again differently. Just go somewhere else. Don't try to hit the same highs, because people will sense it." However, Feige clarified, quote, "There will be a tag shortly after the credits start, but there's not a post-credits scene." In May 2015, Whedon revealed he was in conflict with Marvel executives and the film's editors about certain scenes in the film. The executives were not thrilled with the scenes at Hawkeye's farm or the dream sequences the Avengers experienced because of Scarlet Witch. Also, Whedon had originally shot a much longer scene with Thor and Selvig in the cave, but the final version is shorter as test audiences did not respond well to the original cut. In the scene, Thor will be possessed by a Norn, a goddess of destiny, while Selvig would quiz her about Thor's hallucination. Additionally, Whedon reiterated that he wanted to include Captain Marvel and Spider-Man at the end, but deals for each character, citing him an actress and a deal with Sony Pictures Entertainment respectively, were not completed in time for their inclusion. The film contains 3,000 visual effects shots, completed by 10 different visual effects studios, including ILM, Trickster, Double Negative, Animal Logic, Framestar, Lola VFX, Territory, Perception, Method Studios, Luma Pictures, and The Third Floor. ILM opened a facility in London, citing Avengers Age of Ultron as a catalyst for the expansion. It developed a new motion capture system for the film called Muse, which can better capture an actor's performance and combine different takes. About the motion capture process, Ruffalo called it more of a collaboration since the technology is advancing, with the face capture and the motion capture can now being put together, allowing you to get a lot more latitude as a performer. You're no longer constricted by the attributes that you have as a person, your age or weight or size. None of that matters anymore. So there's this whole exciting place to go that is kind of unknown. Visual effects supervisor Christopher Townsend said that the visual effects team considered depicting the Hulk when manipulated by Maximoff as being gray skin with red eyes, but eventually decided against it, as they didn't want to confuse audiences who might associate it with Joe Fixit, the Grey Hulk from the comics. Then the studios created the interior of the new Avengers training facility by digitally designing the training facility, extracting the characters from the original set and placing them into the new CGI environment. Method also contributed to Iron Man's new Mark 45 suit and played a key role in creating Scarlet Witch's CG mind control effect. Following the trend in recent years, most of the computer screens in Stark's lab, Dr. Cho's laboratory, the Quinjet, and other locations in the film were not added in post-production, but were actually working screens on set, adding to the realism of the film and saving on some of the post-production budget. London-based Territory Studio delivered the screen visuals filled with unique imagery and animations that matched the character using them. Perception worked on the main on-end and main titles for the film. Before settling on the marble monument depiction for the main on-end titles, Perception created 3 other versions, which were based on Ultron's hive mind ability from the film, renderings of power and pure energy, inspired by classic comic panels and classic moments for each character. The final design was inspired by war monuments such as the Iwo Jima Memorial. For the main titles, Marvel wanted the typeface to be a direct continuation of the first film. Perception made the typeface a marble texture to mimic the main on-end titles and changed the title's rotation away from the camera instead of towards the camera in the Avengers, before Age of Ultron overtakes Avengers in a vibranium texture. And now finally, on to the music. In March 2014, Brian Tyler signed on to compose the film's score, replacing the composer for the first film, Alan Silvestri, also marking his third collaboration with Marvel following Iron Man 3 and Thor the Dark World in 2013. Tyler stated that the score pays homage to John Williams' scores for Star Wars, Superman, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and references the scores for the Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America films in order to create a similar musical universe, saying, quote, "That's the goal for sure. You have to build in nostalgia and do it up front so you can relate to it." Danny Elfman also contributed music to the score, replacing Silvestri's theme from the first film to create a new hybrid theme. Hollywood Records released the album digitally on April 18, 2015, and in physical formats on May 19th. So overall, this is a pretty enjoyable movie, and while it's not my favorite Avengers film, it does still hold up pretty well today. So overall, I give Avengers Age of Ultron 4 arc reactors out of 5. Anyway, tune in next time as we took the final film in Phase 2, Ant-Man. So, until then, in the words of late great Stan Lee, Excelsior!